Hello, everybody. We are back at it again. I am Jennifer Shannon, Communications Manager for Jubilee Housing, and we are here with Tim Tutt, Managing Director for Jubilee Farms, and we are on air with Jubilee Housing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to have this conversation with you about Jubilee Farms and all the work that we're doing.
This is exciting. So I'm going to share a little bit of my background, even though this is not my time. But I'm from a small town in South Carolina, and we certainly experienced a lot of farming. My grandparents lived on farms grew up on farms, both sets, my maternal and paternal grandparents. But I was so used to eating fresh food and eating things that were picked naturally from the garden, frozen, and in the winter, so you have whatever is out of season, it is now in season in our house because that's how we did our food. But I want to know, where are you from and how did you get into farming?
So a very similar background. So 3 of my 4 grandparents grew up on farms. Then one set of my grandparents, they moved into town and didn't farm except for growing their own tomatoes and things like that. But then one set of my grandparents retired and moved back to the farm. So to sort of recreate their childhood. But the same thing that you're talking about, we grew up with fresh tomatoes, our own potatoes from the garden. The beef and pork and those things were from animals too. So I really don't think I ate much store-bought food growing up. It just was not a part of our experience. And generationally that has changed. And then I moved to the big city. My own kids know nothing except for food that comes from a grocery store. And that's probably not super healthy for our own bodies, for us as a community, and certainly for us as a planet. Similar growing up experience, except for my small town was in Northeast Texas, but kind of the same as South Carolina.
Kind of the same, absolutely. Yeah. Fortunately, I can say that I'm trying to allow Cade to experience a little bit of farming, not to that extent, but just kind of growing something fresh in the yard, and he likes it.
Growing like your own basil in the yard, or in a pot in the kitchen window, or a tomato plant on the back patio or something. One tomato plant in a 5-gallon bucket, right? It doesn't have to be elaborate, can produce tomatoes all summer, and he'll learn just to go out back and pick a tomato off the vine and eat it, which is so great.
Which is great. Yeah. I'll have to send some pictures in. Anyway, tell us about Jubilee Farms, and what is it?
So Jubilee Farms is one of Jubilee Housing's new ventures. It is a sustainable agricultural system, aquaponics farming. And we can talk more about what aquaponics means, but it's an aquaponics farm that's in one of our new affordable housing apartment buildings. And it's being built both to produce fresh local produce for people in our buildings, in Jubilee Housing's buildings, and for neighbors. And it's being built as a workforce development site for some of our residents who are coming out of incarceration, to give them a place to develop some really good skills. So it's kind of those 2 things. The third thing I would say, and we can unpack all of these, the third thing I would say is the space itself is really pretty. Here we are right in the middle of Adams Morgan, which is a very vibrant, but very urban feeling kind of place. And so in the basement and on the greenhouse and on the rooftop of this new building, we're going to have these greenhouses. So we're creating an urban farm that I expect to be a really, really pretty place. So a place that the neighbors can come and enjoy, and also the residents can really find some meaning there as well. So those are the 3 things. It's a farm, sustainable agriculture, it's a workforce development site, and it's just a really pretty place for meaning making as well. And we can unpack that in any way you want to.
I was about to say, I don't know where to start, but I like the word meaning making, and you've used it so many times. So can you start by unpacking that?
Sure. Well, so let me get at this. When you talked about you were growing up in South Carolina, right, with the fresh fruits and vegetables, you just smiled, right? There's a memory in that that's not just about how the food tastes or how healthy it is, but something about your family, your community, your sense of place, I think is what I saw reflected in your face. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And the same thing for me. My grandfather, he was one of those people who could just walk along and sort of spit in the ground and things would grow up. I mean, he just had a green thumb. But it wasn't just the ability to grow really good vegetables in the garden. It was the place that I mean, honestly, it's the place where we got dirty, right? We put our hands in the dirt. We were connected to the earth. I can remember as a little kid, my siblings and my cousins and I just sort of running through the farm, around the farm, running through the garden. So it was community making, as well as the actual act of growing stuff. So there's something to that, right? That there's a place where your community is doing something that's good for the world. So that's a part of the community making, meaning making experience. The other thing is the way we're designing this building, and maybe we can show some pictures in the video of this. We're building a community room on the top of our Ontario Place building between the two greenhouses. So people can gather there for yoga, for a book club, for a 12-step group, for a birthday party, a bar mitzvah, whatever it is, and be surrounded by fresh, nutritious plants growing. We don't really have those places like that. We somehow, particularly if we live in the city, we've lost touch with creation, with the environment. So we're gonna have a place where people can gather right in the middle of these crops growing. That also is meaning making. And it's on the rooftop, and so it has these great views of DC. You can see the Capitol, you can see the Washington Monument, you can see National Airport. There's something about it being located in the city that's important. And I would go so far as to say in our nation's capital in this moment, there's something about building a place that is life-giving right in the middle of Washington, D.C. that I think is really important for people, particularly in this current political climate and era. So, yeah.
Sure. I love that around meaning making, and thank you for exploring it a little bit deeper, because I've heard you say it so many times, and just to use how we're talking about it, just our normal conversation to explain that was helpful.
So can I say a little bit more about that?
Yes, you can.
So I'm a Christian clergy person by background. That's what I did for 20 or so years, and now I'm the managing director of an aquaponics farm. But in the Christian tradition and in other religious traditions from various places around the world, food rituals are central. In the Christian tradition, it's communion. We have bread and wine, and we've ritualized that as the Lord's Supper or the Eucharist or communion or whatever we call it in our different traditions. And we think of that as sacred. And what I've come to understand is it's sacred not because it is other, not because it's holy or set aside, but food is that's the basic thing that we need. It's sacred because it's so normal to the human story, the human need, and to creation's need. So the idea of growing vegetables is a sacred act because we are creating the very thing that humans need to live and to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. You keep going deeper and deeper. I love it. So you talked about 3 different things. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to a second one, I think, that you mentioned, just around reentry and housing formerly incarcerated people. Right. Let's explore that, but also explore it through the lens of Jubilee Housing, because Jubilee Farms is a venture of Jubilee Housing. Correct. So can you give us that connection? What does that mean as far as being a venture of Jubilee Housing? How do we embody the work of Jubilee Housing in Jubilee Farms?
Right, that's a great question. So for 51 or 52 years now, Jubilee Housing has been providing affordable housing to people as a central idea of our mission, right? People need safe, clean, lovely places to live. We know that. And so we're seeking to provide affordable housing to those who need it here in the Adams Morgan and Columbia Heights neighborhoods of DC. But we know that housing alone is not enough for someone to really thrive and flourish. And so we have this model at Jubilee Housing of justice housing, which is affordable housing in resource-rich neighborhoods with wraparound services. And so we know that people need housing for sure. They also need access to good food. And yes, there are grocery stores around here. We know that. But we are, through Jubilee Farms, just offering another way for people to have good food on their tables. People need access to jobs. It's not just enough to have a place to live. You also need a place to work and to thrive and to learn new skills and to grow and to flourish. And so the workforce development part of it is also providing this wraparound service idea. People will be coming out of incarceration. We already have a dozen plus people in our reentry program. We're expanding that with these 2 new buildings that we're building. So people will be coming out of incarceration. They'll be provided a home in this resource-rich area that is Adams Morgan. So they can get to a doctor, they can get to public transportation, they can get to a grocery store, they can get to a restaurant, they can get to school for their kids if they need to. And they'll have the opportunity to engage in this workforce training program right there in their neighborhood. So it's all a part of that. The hope is that people will get certification in aquaponics agriculture. We're working with some partners to explore that. They'll also get experience with sales and marketing and transportation, things that will work if they decide to stay in this neighborhood and continue to be a part of the Jubilee community and maybe continue to work in the farm. They can keep doing that, or they're going to get these skills that can be transferred out to other places where they might work. So all that together fits in this Jubilee model of a resource-rich neighborhood, affordable housing, wraparound services, care for people right where they are.
Yep, perfect. Now we're going to back up and go to the first point you made, which is around food. It's a farm. It's going to have sustainable food. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
So let's talk about aquaponics farming to begin with, because there are all kinds of ways to farm, right? We talked about our grandparents, our great-grandparents. They were traditional dirt farmers, as we said in East Texas, right? They had a little patch of land or a big patch of land, and they planted the seeds in the dirt in the early spring and watched it grow. And by the middle of the summer, your corn was high, your tomatoes, your potatoes, whatever it was growing. And toward the end of summer, you harvested it. And then you canned it or froze it or you ate it or whatever. So that's traditional farming. Much of that, probably since our grandparents were coming up, has been taken over by corporate farming. And so it's a little different than what it was for our grandparents, for sure. Aquaponics farming is a different way of farming. There's hydroponics and aquaponics. The difference between hydroponics and aquaponics is that aquaponics uses fish. So the deal is, in the basement of Ontario Place, our new building will have 3 big fish tanks. And we're going to have, when all is said and done, about 200 fish swimming in those tanks. People always ask what kind of fish, and so I'm going to say we're going to use koi, in part because we learned that some other fish are violent, and I think the world is mean enough without having violent fish. I won't name the particular type of fish because we don't want to shame them.
Sure.
But word on the street is that tilapia are sometimes violent toward each other, so we're not going to use tilapia.
Don't expose tilapia, Tim.
I'm sorry, tilapia. So we're going to have koi in our fish tanks. They will poop in the water. I can't think of a nice way to say that. I was talking to one group and I said the fish will produce waste. And honestly, they looked at me completely so blankly. They didn't know what we were talking about. Okay. So the fish will poop in the water, right? And fish poop is extremely rich in nutrients, which is great. In fact, we'll have to filter the water out of the tanks through a system because it's so rich in nutrients that it would be too rich for the plants.
Okay.
So we'll filter the water out. Parenthetically, the waste that we're not using, that we're extracting from the water, we can use that as mulch for our other outdoor plants around our building. So nothing is going to waste here. So we're extracting some of the stuff which we'll use in the gardens and whatnot, or the regular flower beds. The water that is cleaned and nutrient balanced will go through this system. The system of pipes, and it will water plants that are growing in towers. So folks can Google aquaponics and see this, but we'll have these sort of narrow pyramid type towers. We put the plugs of lettuce or kale, or we can grow chamomile for tea. We can grow fresh flowers. We can grow cucumbers, tomatoes, whatever it is. Put the plugs in these towers. The water trickles down from the top. There's no dirt in the system because the water is so rich in nutrients that we don't need the dirt in this particular system. So the water trickles down through the towers, watering the roots with all these nutrients, and the plants grow and flourish. The way our system is set up, we'll have a lot of plants in the basement growing. Things like leafy greens grow better in the dark in the basement. Things that you think of as growing up will probably grow better on the rooftops. But the water cycles through this whole system.
Okay.
One of the things, I'm sorry if I'm being way too technical.
No.
Tell me to stop.
No. Yeah. Keep going.
One of the things about the water system is when you water outside, when you water the farm that our grandparents grew up with, you water once and that water's gone, right? Okay. You use it. This system, the water loops back through the system. It's about 7 times more efficient for water use than traditional farming is. So whereas you water once outside and it evaporates, this would water back through about 7 days. So it's about 7 times more efficient using water, which is good for a planet that's having water issues. So because it's so nutrient rich, the plant growing season is about 6 weeks as opposed to that outdoor system, which is about 3 months, the full summer season. So about 6 weeks from when the plants are planted and the water trickles on to when we can harvest them.
Okay.
At maximum capacity in the system we're designing, we'll be able to produce about 13,000 plants per month. I don't know that we'll do that every month. I'm not sure what our rotation system will be. But we have the potential to produce in a really small square footage a tremendous number of plants to use to feed residents in Jubilee Housing and for others around the neighborhood and around the city to enjoy as well.
That's definitely a technical process, but it's been so fascinating to learn and to learn the differences between hydroponics, aquaponics, and just to see how those things work and the benefits that are going to be for the community. I mean, food for the community, community kitchen.
Yes.
So I'm totally impressed by that and totally impressed by you for helping to guide this process and to, get us to where we're going. So I'm going to ask you a couple of different questions.
Sure.
I'll try not to, because I want to start with one, but then I kind of want to go with another. You started to say that we were going to have some partnerships. There are some people that we're working with, and you specifically talked about that around workforce development, I think. But as you were talking about how these towers and this process is going to work, I hear we had a pretty big partner in trying to make that happen. Can you share a little bit about that story?
Right. There's a great organization, a nonprofit group that's headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida called Fresh Ministries. And really, aquaponics farming is their thing. They do lots of other things. They do some really good workforce development, economic development, really great organization in Jacksonville. But they have come up with a system to design and build aquaponics greenhouses, aquaponics systems that they are really installing around the world. I think they're doing work in South Africa and in Lesotho and the U.S. Virgin Islands and in Haiti, as well as there in Jacksonville. So their basic model is to build a greenhouse that's portable, collapsible, that they can build in Jacksonville, fold up and put into a box, ship around the world. So people, particularly where there's real drought, real water issues, can just open up this kit and build their greenhouse with these systems. It's pretty technical. It's there's some things you want to monitor and all that, but all the equipment is stuff you could buy at Home Depot. It's not that extravagant stuff, right? So it's just knowing how to do it. But they're doing that all around the world. What's unique about our project is we're putting it in the basement of an affordable housing building and on the rooftop. So they've designed this custom plan for us. They've been really great partners. So I really appreciate the people at Fresh Ministries. They design the project. They're telling us how to use it. They're going to provide some training for us, and they'll also just be our friends and partners to monitor this over the next couple of years and help us know what we're doing right and how we can change things. So I really appreciate Fresh Ministries, and then all these other partners. We're working with various workforce development nonprofits and some grants and some foundations that are supporting that. So we're really grateful for funding from various organizations, from other partners who are trying to figure out when people come back from incarceration, they're going to be living in our building and working in this farm. How do they take those skills and really transfer them to other things? What experience and so lots of partners, funding partners, development partners, construction partners, everyone. So
again, super fascinating. You know what, Tim? I think we're going to stop here for today, but we're going to do a part 2 of this podcast. So I hope you'll join me, and we'll continue this conversation.
I will definitely be there for part 2.
All right, thank you.
Late Marion Barry, you talked about what you're doing for the last, at least the lost and the left out. And when I think about what we do at Jubilee, it's always doing it in that vein and spirit of ensuring that we're doing all we can for the last, at least the lost and the left out.